In this video, we're going to look at some Agile basics. Now, I really want to point out before starting that this course is not about Agile, but there's some key terms and concepts that you'll need to know about Agile if you want to use Jira's Agile system. Now, there are a ton of different Agile tools out there, and Jira is just one of them. All right, so let's start with what is Agile? Well, Agile is a team-based project management methodology, and like I mentioned, there are a lot of different tools out there that you can use for Agile. Jira is just one of them. There's two key methods of working with Agile in Jira. One of them is Kanban, and the other one is Scrum. So let's take a look at these differences really for the purpose of Jira, but we're kind of talking outside of the Jira software. So Kanban means billboard in Japanese. And really it's a methodology that was founded with a production pipeline. So sometimes it is referred to as lean or just-in-time development or things like that. It kind of started in the production world and then moved into development. And by production, I mean car production. Because Kanban actually started at Toyota. All right, so this is kind of what a Kanban board or billboard would look like. Essentially, you're going to have a bunch of tickets or Post-it notes or whatever you might have in each of these different columns. And in the simplest form, there's going to be three columns. There's going to be to do, there's going to be in progress, and then complete. So the idea is pretty straightforward, and hopefully just by looking at this, you can kind of get an idea of how it works. Essentially, it works from left to right. So everything that needs to be done is going to be in to-do. Once you start working on something, it'll be in progress. You can put your name on it to see who's working on it, and so you kind of have a point of contact there. And then once it's complete, it moves over into complete, and then you pick up the next ticket from to-do and drag it into progress and start working on the next thing. Essentially, this would be a board that is visible to everybody. And so anybody can come take a look at the board and see exactly what has yet to be worked on, is currently in progress, and what things are complete. Now, Scrum is somewhat similar. It actually comes from a rugby term. Now, the Scrum in rugby is when all of the different players are kind of packed together trying to get the ball. So the idea of Scrum, as far as Agile is concerned, is kind of taking that metaphor. It's the teams working together to get something achieved. So one of the defining characteristics of Scrum Agile is sprints. Now, sprints are essentially a determined amount of time. So we'll take a look at that here in a second. First, let's take a look at an actual Scrum board. So this would be what a Scrum board looks like. So you can see it's very similar to a Kanban board. Now, the primary difference here is that there's a backlog. Now, in Jira, actually, at the time of recording this, the company behind Jira is looking at adding a backlog into Kanban just to kind of help with some of the Post-its. You can see in the to-do column, depending on how big your team is, you might start getting a lot of different things in to do. And so they're kind of looking at potentially putting in a backlog just to kind of help clean that up a little bit. But in Scrum, the backlog is where you go for your sprints. So we kind of talked a little bit about sprints just a second ago, but what exactly is a sprint? So a sprint is a set period of time. Now, most commonly, it's going to be anywhere from 1 week. So you have a 1 week sprint to a 4 week sprint. So that would be maybe you'll have a 1 week sprint. Another team might have a 2 week sprint. Another one of your teams might have a 4 week sprint or a sprint for a month. Really, most commonly, it doesn't really get to be any more than 4 weeks. So the purpose of a sprint is to kind of, instead of working in an ongoing basis, so on a Kanban workflow or a lean workflow, you're working in an ongoing basis. Once something is complete, you grab something from to-do and start working on it, When it's complete, go back to to-do, and so on and so forth. With a sprint or in a Scrum workflow, what you're going to do is have a set period of time, let's say 1 week, and then you're going to start the sprint, and in the sprint, you're going to look at the backlog and you're going to say, okay, what are we going to achieve in this 1 week? And then as a team, you're going to take those tickets, move it from backlog into the to-do column, and that's all you're going to see for that 1 week are the tickets that you agreed to do in that sprint. Now, at the end of the week, you'll look at the board, and if there's anything that maybe did not get done, sometimes that happens, you'll determine if it's something that needs to move on to the next sprint. But the point of that is essentially to have a cyclical nature of kind of having a point of checking in to see where the progress is. So in a sprint, you're typically going to ask really 2 questions. The first one is going to be what went well in the last sprint. So what did we do really well? And that's kind of a chance to celebrate some of the wins, and each team member gets to answer this question. And then the other question, this one can be a little bit more difficult. It's what can we improve on for the next sprint? So what didn't go well? What can we do better for next time? And that's kind of, it's a chance to learn from mistakes, or it's a chance to really improve for the next time. So maybe if there's a ticket that we thought we were going to get done in a week and we didn't get it done, then we can have that discussion as a team. And if you are a team leader, it's really your chance to kind of see what is holding up this particular ticket and why is this not getting done. And then rather than just keep hounding somebody to try to get something done, actually hearing what they have to say and actually being able to solve the actual problem. Maybe the computer crashed. That happens, right? Computers crash. And if a computer crashes, that's not something that you expect. And so maybe you weren't able to get something done because you lost a day or two while you were waiting for IT to be able to fix the system. So those are the types of conversations that the sprint can really help with. And then you go through the process of, once you kind of reflected on the last sprint, you go through the process of determining what you're going to do in the next sprint. So those 2 primary kind of sections of a sprint, the first section where you kind of look at what happened in the last sprint, that's going to be kind of referred to as a retrospective. And then you're going to move on and look forward and decide what you're going to do in the next sprint. Now, another term that you're going to come across in agile workflows is the daily stand-up, or sometimes it's called the daily scrum. Now, this is really more popular in a Scrum agile workflow. I have seen it in a Kanban process as well, and it works perfectly fine. Essentially, what a daily stand-up is a morning meeting. So first thing in the morning, everybody gets together, and it's called a daily stand-up because ideally everybody is going to be standing up. Now, the purpose for standing up is really to help it go a lot faster. Most people don't like to stand up for very long, especially if you're a developer or programmer, and I'm right there with you. But and so that kind of helps make the meeting go by a little bit faster. So every single team member in the stand-up is going to answer these 3 questions. There's going to be different variations, but these are kind of a template to go by. So what did I accomplish yesterday? What will I do today? And then what roadblocks do I foresee from that might stop me from accomplishing this goal of what I want to do today? Now, if you're a team leader, really pay attention to the roadblocks section, because that can really be an area where you start to see some of the issues that you might see. Maybe it's something like, I really want to finish this feature, but I'm waiting on feedback from somebody. You can go out there and find out who they're waiting on or waiting for feedback on, just kind of push them along a little bit in order to help remove that roadblock. And then the key purpose or the key kind of thing here with the stand-up is you do want it to be fast. So you don't discuss anything other than those 3 questions. Everybody answers those. If you need to jot down some notes, or if there's something you want to talk about, you can set up a meeting with that person later on. But as a team, you're just answering these questions, kind of getting on the same page, understanding what people worked on yesterday and then what they're going to work on today. All right, so that's very quick kind of crash course on some of the key things in Agile. Just to kind of summarize real quickly, there's two primary methodologies or agile methodologies that you'll find in Jira. One of those is Kanban, and that's where work is tracked on a board that everybody can see. And the primary thing is that it's ongoing work. So once something is done, if you finish something, you're going to start on something else right away, and it's just an ongoing thing. There's no sprints or team meetups necessarily in order to have a set period of time. And then the flip side of that is Scrum, where work is tracked on the board that everybody can see. That's a common theme in Agile, open transparency and open communication there within the team. But then work is broken up into sprints. So every week, every couple weeks, every month, the team meets up and decides what they want to work on for that next sprint. And then, of course, the daily stand-ups in each meeting are key in order to kind of make sure that everybody's working on what is going to be, or what we had agreed upon in that sprint, and there's no major roadblocks that will stop that from happening. All right, so that's kind of an overview of Agile. Again, Jira is not the only Agile tool out there. In fact, a lot of teams prefer to use a simple whiteboard with something like Post-it notes instead of an actual digital tool. There's really no right or wrong tool when it comes to Agile. It's really more about what is right for your team. Now, with that in mind, Jira is something that some of the world's largest companies are using for their Agile workflows. And as with any digital tool, you have the benefit of really being everywhere. So with an actual physical whiteboard, that would only be in your office. And if you need to access something from home, that can kind of prove to be problematic. All right, so let's move on to our next video where we'll take a look at some more terms that we need to get familiar with, and that is user stories and epics.